morning, Prairie Plant Girl here. I got some more potatoes to plant. The weather's turned, it's beautiful out. So I'm going to be planting potatoes outside today. But first I need to get the covers off of my plants that I have here in the greenhouse. And I found one more Linzer delicatesse. I knew I had another one in that pile. I don't know, I couldn't find it the other day when I was planting, so I'm gonna stick it down in the biggest bucket here that was supposed to get 3 and only wound up with 2 the other day. Hopefully I have some gloves in here. I had planned to put 3 in this little bit larger bucket the other day, and when it came time I could only find 2. So now I've found this one, and I'm going to pop it in this pot here real quick, let it catch up to the rest. So I'm just going to move away some of these leaves. Reach down into the soil here. Hopefully I don't hit another potato. Drop that one down there. Cover it back up. Now that one should catch up with the rest, I hope. I know it will. So I'm going to get these covers off the plants in here, and then we're going to go out to the garden. I've been doing some work out there, enjoying this beautiful weather. It seems to be how it works here in Saskatchewan. We're cold and miserable, and it feels like winter will never fully let go, and then we're getting sunburns. So let me just get a couple things done here in the greenhouse, and we'll get some potatoes planted. On our way out there, I should show you this because it's part of what I'm doing with potatoes. These are the pots that I had a lot of potatoes in last year, and I've actually gone through, and I don't know if you can see in the back, straight across from where we are there's one that's looking empty right now. I've dug down in that one, and most of the rest, I have a few more left. Took out most of the soil, and I've added it to that far bed back there. With the commercial kind of hoop house thing on it. I've used the soil from these pots, put it in there, and then I've actually just, these pots in the front here are done. So what I've done is I've filled probably about 1/3 of the pots here in front of me, and I'll get to the rest after, they've been filled up with leaves and yard waste, partially decomposed kind of things, and then I've just put a little bit of soil back on top, and those will be for my squash and pumpkins and things this year. But I needed a little bit more. I need a little bit more soil for that bed with the purchased hoop house there on it, because that's where I'm going to put my potatoes, and it was quite depleted. So I've added in some steer manure and this soil from these pots just to fill it up, and I just have the hoop on there because it's actually frozen underneath there, underneath what I added on. So I was just trying to warm it up the last few days here. So let's get our stuff out there and have a look at what's happening with that. So you can see it's pretty much filled up here now. I need to add just a little bit more. I don't even know if you can see, but on the side closest to us here, there's a pretty low spot in a few places there. And then I have just a little bit of composted steer manure down there, so I'm just going to throw that in. I'd added some over most of the bed, but I didn't get this end here done, so I'll do that. So I'm going to work on getting the last couple of pots, big pots here, changed out so I can get the soil into this bed, and then I'm going to plant the potatoes in there. Okay, so I think just that little bit more soil was enough to fill up that gap. I thought I'd do more than that. But now I have enough to do the potatoes in here. I think that bed's full enough. I'll kind of smooth it over a little bit, and then I'll be able to plant the potatoes. So what I'm planting today is red Pontiac potatoes. They're a nice red skin potato. They have a very nice white flesh. I find them to be a pretty good multi-purpose potato. They're great for boiling and mashing, which is what we do a lot of, and I like them for baked potatoes too. Now, I know some people like a more mealy, drier baked potato, but I actually like a nice moist baked potato. So I'm not a fan of russets for baked potatoes. If that's your kind of baked potato, these probably aren't it, but for me, this is what I really like. I've taken them, I think this was 5 pounds I had ordered from my local garden center, and I've just had them sitting out for a week maybe now. They've started to chit a little bit, but I'm not really concerned about that. They'll do that even underground. It just takes a little bit longer to get going. And I've cut them, and I did this yesterday, so they've had a chance to callus over a little bit. If you are cutting your potatoes and planting them out in early spring, like we're still 3 weeks now, I believe, until our average last frost date. We're still getting down to freezing and below at night. So if you cut your potatoes to put them in the soil, you want to make sure that they've definitely healed over, and you might want to just go with whole potatoes just to ensure they don't rot. There's more chance of them rotting when they're cut open. So some people will, with their earlier potatoes in our climate here, they'll just plant them whole, but cutting them gives you just a few more plants. You just need to look for, you want to have 2 or 3 eyes at least on them, just to help them grow. They don't have to be chitted out like this. They could be tiny little eyes, but you just need those spots because that's where they're going to grow from for you. So I marked it out. I think I have enough to do 32 hills in this bed here. This bed is made 8 feet by 4 feet. So I'll put one approximately every foot, and then I have a few more that I'm going to put in a large pot and grow there. So I'm just going to get these in the soil. The soil has a little bit of steer manure in it, just composted steer manure. You wouldn't want to put fresh in with potatoes. And then otherwise it's just made up of a mix of mostly peat moss and compost. Some of my beds have some vermiculite in them. I don't think this one does. I do dump my pots from my flowers or like my buckets of potatoes and that into my beds every year. So there's always a little mixture of things, but for the most part, that's what they're going into. I'm going to plant them down kind of as far as I can reach till the ground it was still frozen underneath this layer, so I'm not sure how far deep they're going to go. These are determinate potatoes, so I don't need to really worry about hilling them. They're an early, kind of a mid-early, they'll be done. I think they'll be ready in around 10, 12 weeks, something like that. So that's when I plan to be harvesting them. They can sit in the ground a bit longer if they need to. So I'm just going to get these started. Today I'm going to be planting up my Binti and my blue Russian potatoes. These are both late season potato. They were new to me last year. I tried them out. You might recall seeing me growing these in some very large pots last year. This year I'm going to be putting them in my raised bed behind me here. So I saved 5 of the Binti, and I have 6 of the blue Russian. So they should fit in here nicely, spaced in this bed. They're both pretty heavy producers, and they'll take 17 to 19 weeks before they're able to be harvested. So all I'm going to do is dig them down nice and deep. I'll add a little bit of bone meal to the planting area, and I'll water them in well. And then all you have to do is just make sure that a nice sufficient amount of water is kept supplied to the potatoes. I will come along and put a mulch on them just to help keep some moisture in the ground here, and keep an eye on them for potato bugs. It's not something I've had to deal with here in this yard. I have had to deal with them in other yards. It's easy to just grab them off and just pluck them out. Just come out and you'll find them. You can see them easily and pull them off, and that's all I do to take care of them. So then I'll just watch, and once the plants have flowered and they start to die back, then I'll know that the potatoes are getting ready to harvest. You can back off on watering at that point and let them mature, let the skins harden a little bit underground, and harvest. I'll do a harvest video when the time comes so you can see how to do that. So let's get these in the ground. This bed is in the east part of my garden, and it's just a narrow, it's a 2 by 8 foot bed. I have a little bit of spinach and kale in here as well, and I do plan to put a little bit of corn in the back corner, but this will be enough space here. I'm going to space these about 1 foot apart. And that'll work out just nicely. It's a nice hot sunny day today. These beds were frozen about 6 inches underground just a week ago. The sun's been shining. I've been getting warm temperatures. And I had some old window panes sitting on top of the soil here. I pulled the mulch back a week ago or so, and the windows on here, and that helps to get them helps to get the soil warmed up when you have that dark earth instead of the mulch on top. So just put that nice and low. Now you can plant your potatoes more shallow and then hill them, but I prefer to just plant them deep and let them come up. We're about 3 weeks away from our average last frost date here, and that's just fine to be putting the potatoes in the ground. By the time they come up, we likely won't be having any hard frosts by then, and even if we do, it'll just touch the leaves and they'll be fine. Okay, so that's 5 binties down in the north end of this bed, and then I'm going to put the blue Russian over on this side. Now, this side was more frozen. As you can see there, it gets a bit of shade till late in the afternoon, so I'm hoping it's thawed out enough that I can put potatoes in there. Again, I'll be putting them about 1 foot apart. So that should do it. So let's get some holes. It's still a little bit frozen here, but it'll be all right. Go down to that depth. So I have a bucket here of shredded leaves. It's what I was using for compost on my beds, my flower beds here, my garden beds, and I've just taken it off, like I said, to thaw the soil out a little bit. And now I'm going to be putting it back on. I'm just going to put it on the one side of the bed The other side is still a little bit frozen at the bottom. I'd like to give it a little bit more time to thaw out, just a little bit lower. It won't hurt the potatoes because it is so warm. The soil above is warm enough, but this will insulate the ground, so I want to make sure that the soil gets a chance to thaw out a little bit better there. Once this side thaws out, I'll put a layer of mulch on it as well, and I'm going to get this whole bed watered in really well. And in the next week or so, I'll be hooking up my drip to all my beds, and until then, I'll just make sure that the ground is staying moist. This bed over here, I've already filled with my red Norlands. They're an early to mid-season variety of potato, and I did these last week, I think it was. And I still haven't got the mulch on them, so I'm going to do that right now too. And see, it's starting to dry out, so I'll have to give them a good water as well. Now I have all my potatoes planted except for my Caribe potatoes, so I need to find somewhere to stick those, and run out of room, but I'll figure something out. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.